Listen, they can't. I didn't expect that. I thought it'd be tough to go in there and get a win, but I didn't expect that type of dominant performance tonight. I didn't know Iowa State's been licking their chops here. They need Momcilovic back in the worst way. They've lost some confidence. It's amazing. We were talking right before the show, and Trevor mentioned their season's been derailed on a heave on a 70-footer, and it's just amazing that happens. And then all of a sudden now we're talking about them struggling. But Kansas, listen, they've had their situational basketball flaws as well, and I think it just shows that how confidence is a fragile thing. Um, Not worried about them. No, I think Kansas will be fine. They responded well tonight, but obviously there's some concerns and aims right now with the way those guys are playing. But I'll see them Saturday, and I think they'll be ready for TCU when they come in town.
And 37-0, I believe, is what Goodman tweeted Bill Self is on Big Monday. You go back home. How do you sort of, I guess, filter through that, though, right? Like this being just a home response, versus like real problems that the Jayhawks may have flashed in the last couple of weeks.
I mean, first and foremost, man, like you gotta understand that when a team goes out and gets their doors blown off at the crib from a very below average Kansas State team, like that team is hungry, right? So for Kansas to do what they did, I don't think that's a fluke. I think it's surprising. It's surprising for sure, but I don't think it's I don't think it's a fluke. I do think Kansas has to start getting back to playing Kansas, ball, and Bill Self, got these new players and all that. Tonight was all about defense. It wasn't about scoring. It wasn't about flash. It was just all guys playing to win every single possession, and that's what this game was, man. So you just got to start on that end. And I know this was a very sexy built team from the standpoint of, hey, we could put up a lot of points. Today they show that they can, not allow a lot of points. And, can that be their identity moving forward? We'll see. But they definitely had the personnel to be able to get that done.
RC, like, you guys are both talking about just the margin here, and there's no question about it. I mean, they did build the 21-point lead, in Waco, and we're winning, for the majority of the game against Houston. But does it make those results, like, I don't know, even more confusing when you see what they're capable of on a night like this against? I mean, that Iowa State team, like Ant mentioned, was like this should have been hair on fire for them after getting their doors blown off by that underperforming Kansas State team. But does it make those results like more, or is that just, I don't know, college basketball? It's a veteran team. That's why I ask.
Listen, I agree with what he said about they have to have their identity on the defensive end of the floor, but we've seen this Kansas team struggle with perimeter shooting at times as well, right? And we talked about AJ Store's adjustment. He's been high and low throughout the entire year with these guys. So if it wasn't for Zeke Mayo, I don't know if that what consistency they would get out of their transfers and their veteran guys. They were hoping to kind of provide that. What I'd like to see is probably them play more through Hunter. Hunter gets on the post and just goes to work and plays more inside out. I know that's not a traditional way that a lot of people want to play, but if they defend and you run your offense through him, I think he can be dominant when he plays more inside out than facing stretching the D, catching from behind the three. He can knock that down, and I do understand he needs to open up the paint. But when they begin to struggle, I wish he would play inside. I think he forces you to double, and he gets more opportunities, even open looks for those guys. So I think they did a little bit of that tonight. But again, Big 12, I mean, the league is tough too, particularly the teams we're talking about them losing to. Baylor is probably one of the teams I think we all probably expected them to be a little bit better, more consistent throughout the year. But these teams are going to beat each other up and whole serve at home in a way. And, it's going to be hard to get road wins. So Kansas take care of business at home. I didn't have many questions about them from the beginning. Iowa State now, this is three in a row. So I think there is some
Right.
confidence issues. I think they need to get back. They got TCU this weekend. That losing three in a row this late in the year, you have some things obviously you need to get right. But I just think the main thing for them is when Chilibus gets back, gets healthy, it provides floor spacing. I think spacing is a big part of why offensively, their issue is struggling. I don't care how good you are defensively. At some point, you got to start making some shots to help you out. They've just been flat out struggling on the offensive end of the floor.
Yeah, 69-52 the final, and we will handicap sort of the Big 12 and go a little deeper into that race and try to figure out who's coming out. And I want to ask you about sort of the personnel here. Bill Self caught a lot of flack. I guess he's been catching a lot of flack, for the majority of the season when it comes to KJ Adams. Sticking with him as long as he stuck with him in that Baylor game. He started again tonight. I mean, again, was not a great game for him by any means, but what do you sort of read into that? Him sticking with, is it the right decision? Like, what do you just make of that choice in the lineup personnel wise?
You know what? I thought he had a decent game tonight. I'm not going to say he came out and was just killing, just doing all those things, but his energy is infectious. That's one thing. He also had at least 5 dimes tonight. Last time I checked, he had 5 assists. I think the last time he had 5 assists was like UNCW back in like November or something like that. So his passing tonight was really, really special. He was hitting cutters. I like the 2-man game with Hunter. It showed that he does show some potential there. And I think, that kind of goes back to what RC said is, hey, you can attack the paint with this group. And if guys are hitting shots, that's going to make things a lot easier to be able to shrink the defense. And now KJ has shown that he could pass the ball a bit. Maybe Bill Self trusts that a bit more. Not really from him being able to not shoot as much not shooting as jump shots, but hey, create to score and create opportunities, not necessarily for you, but for everybody else. And if guys like Zeke Mayo are getting open and those guys continue to attract their defenders out, you can see more opportunities there for him and Hunter, and even with Flory.
Yeah, RC, you mentioned.
I'll say this: I don't know where all the conversations would come from about benching him or not playing. Who are you benching him for? And you're not he's never been a big time stat guy, right? His activity, to what I said, his activity has been his thing, his motor, his activity, his versatility on the defensive end of the floor. I mean, that's his main contribution to this group. He's not what he gives you offensively is always running the floor, transition, playing off the other guys around him, cutting and things of that nature. So he's won a hell of a lot of ball games. So I can't imagine that they'd ever entertain really benching him.
The argument, I guess, would be you'd bench him for Badunga, like you would put him in over KJ, who did have a hell of a game against.
Yeah, or even like AJ Store or something like that. Yeah, I feel you though.
I mean, you would be really small doing that. I just think he brings a level of physicality, athleticism, and just defensive mindset that I think fits. And I think he allows you more of a traditional where they could guard, they can switch forward, and they're already in drops with Hunter Dickinson. So, but you're talking about if you're trying to do that with Padunga, then how are you gonna, are you gonna go that with both guys? You're gonna play in drops, I guess, with both guys. I don't know, man. That's something obviously Bill would figure out. But I just think what he does defensively, he gives them a lot. I don't know.
So I want to ask about Iowa State, but just to bottom line it on Kansas. Obviously, I don't know if you could have felt worse about them in 2 of those 3 losses. At the bottom, it felt like. Do you sort of feel like maybe tonight RC is one where, all right, we can kind of breathe a little bit now. We kind of got this thing right back on track. Like, how deep would you sort of look into this one for them?
Well, let's listen. This was a butt kicking, right? I mean, this wasn't pretty from the start. Kansas just jumped out early and just kind of kept them at bay the entire game. They've struggled to score. Shots aren't falling. I thought the defensive effort was there from Iowa State, which is where their identity was. Now with Momcilovic out, you're starting to see teams make adjustments and living and dying, and guys are open. Some guys are getting open. And then what that does is it restrict. When the floor isn't spaced, I thought that the floor wasn't spaced. Guys are driving in the gaps when guys are there, having something. They didn't turn it over a great deal. They're just not. The spacing isn't there, and when Momcilovic gets back, I think it'll open things up for them. It'll open up those driving lanes. It'll create space and driving lanes, and I think they'll figure things out. As long as they're defending, I'm not worried. But hey, this is 3